You believe in God. But this is what you're doing wrong. You've carried this belief for a long time. Not something new, not something uncertain. It feels settled inside you, familiar, almost unquestionable. And because of that, you've never really stopped to ask what that belief is actually doing in your life. There is a difference most people never notice. Not between believing and not believing, but between holding a belief and being changed by it. One feels secure, the other demands something from you. And most people stay where it feels safe. You've learned how to say the right things. You've learned how to think about God in a way that makes sense to you. You've built an understanding that feels complete, that doesn't disturb your life, that allows you to keep moving the way you always have. But what if that's the problem? What if nothing has interrupted you? Nothing has challenged you. Nothing has forced you to look deeper than what you've already accepted. And because of that, you've never seen what's missing. This is not about taking anything away from you. It's about revealing what has never been touched. The parts of your life that your belief has not reached. The direction that has not changed. The patterns that remain exactly the same even after everything you say you believe. And once you see that you cannot unsee it. So stay here. Don't move past this too quickly. Don't rush to defend yourself. Don't try to explain it away. Just listen and be honest with what you're hearing. Because this is not about what you say you believe. It's about what your life is proving. You've been moving forward, but have you ever stopped to ask where you're actually going? Not in general terms, not in the way people usually answer that question, but honestly, when you look at your decisions, your priorities, your daily direction, what is guiding you? Because belief by itself does not move you. It can exist in your mind while your life follows a completely different path. You can hold on to something internally and still be driven by the same fears, the same desires, the same patterns that have always defined you. And when that happens, belief becomes passive. It sits there present but inactive, real to you, but not shaping anything you do. And over time, you stop expecting it to do anything at all. You continue making choices the same way. You react the same way when pressure comes. You pursue the same things. You avoid the same discomfort. And even though you believe your direction remains unchanged, that is where something breaks. Because belief was never meant to stay in place. It was meant to lead, to redirect, to pull you into a different way of living, not just a different way of thinking. But if your life is still being led by everything else, then your belief is not in control. And if it's not leading you, then something else is. So take a moment and look closely, not at what you say you believe, but at what is actually guiding your life. Because whatever is guiding you is what you're truly following. At some point, without noticing, you started measuring everything by how it feels. When you feel close, you assume everything is right. When you feel distant, you assume something is wrong. And slowly, your entire understanding of faith becomes tied to emotion instead of truth. That shift changes everything. Because feelings are unstable. They rise and fall without warning. They respond to circumstances, to stress, to moments that have nothing to do with what is actually real. And when your faith depends on something that is unstable, it cannot sustain you. So your connection becomes inconsistent. There are moments where everything feels clear, strong, alive. And then there are moments where it feels empty, quiet, almost absent. And instead of questioning the foundation, you question the feeling. You begin to chase it. You look for experiences that recreate that sense of connection. You repeat what made you feel something before. You rely on emotional moments to confirm that everything is still in place. And when those moments fade, you feel like something is missing. But nothing was missing. What you were relying on was never meant to hold you. Faith was never designed to depend on how you feel in the moment. It was meant to remain steady even when everything inside you feels uncertain. It was meant to guide you when emotion is gone, not disappear with it. And if your faith only exists when you feel it, then it leaves the moment your feelings change. So ask yourself something real. If the emotion disappeared right now, if the feeling was gone completely, would anything still remain that actually holds you? Because what remains is what your faith is truly built on. Look at the moments when you actually stop and turn your attention upward. Not in theory, but in real life. When things are stable, when everything feels under control, when nothing is pressing on you, what happens to that connection, you say, matters so much. For most people, it fades. Not completely, but enough to go unnoticed. It becomes something occasional, something secondary, something that only comes into focus when something is missing or falling apart. And when that moment comes, everything changes. Suddenly you are focused, you become intentional, you seek, you ask, you reach, and it feels sincere, it feels urgent, it feels like a real connection. But the question is not how it feels in that moment. The question is why it only shows up then. Because when the situation passes, when the pressure is gone, that same intensity slowly disappears. The attention fades, the urgency dissolves, and you return to the same pattern you were living before. And over time, that pattern becomes normal. You don't question it. You don't challenge it. You simply accept that connection belongs to moments of need, not to the flow of your life. And without realizing it, you've built something conditional, something that appears when required and disappears when it's not. But a real relationship does not depend on crisis. It is not activated by fear or urgency. It remains when everything is quiet, when nothing is wrong, when there is no immediate reason to reach for it. And that is where the difference becomes clear. So ask yourself honestly, if everything in your life was fine right now, no pressure, no fear, no uncertainty, would you still seek that same connection with the same depth? Or does it only come alive when you need something? Pay attention to what you naturally move toward and what you quietly move away from. You don't always notice it, but your choices reveal it. The things you listen to, the messages you accept, the ideas you allow into your mind, they are not random. They are selected, filtered, chosen, based on how they make you feel. And most of the time, you choose comfort. You lean into what reassures you, what confirms what you already believe, what tells you that everything is fine the way it is. And anything that disrupts that, anything that questions you, anything that presses against your current life, you slowly begin to avoid. Not aggressively, just quietly. You scroll past it. You dismiss it. You tell yourself it's not necessary. You convince yourself you already understand enough. And that subtle resistance becomes a pattern that shapes everything you allow yourself to hear. But truth does not always comfort you. Sometimes it exposes you. Sometimes it challenges what you've accepted. Sometimes it forces you to look at parts of yourself that you've learned to ignore. And that kind of confrontation demands something from you. It requires change, and that is where most people step back. They don't reject truth openly. They just stop engaging with anything that would require them to move. They build a space around themselves where nothing challenges them anymore, and in that space, they remain exactly the same. So growth never happens. Not because they lack belief, but because they've chosen to avoid what would actually transform them. They've protected their comfort at the cost of their progress. And over time, they stop recognizing the difference between what feels right and what is real. So think about this clearly. What have you been avoiding, not because it's wrong, but because it would require you to change? Because what you avoid the most often holds the very thing that would move you forward. Over time, something subtle begins to happen. You stop discovering who God is, and you start shaping Him into something that fits your life. Not intentionally, not in a way you would admit. But little by little, you hold on to the parts that comfort you, and you let go of the parts that challenge you. You accept what feels right, and you ignore what would require you to change. And eventually it feels complete. You carry a version that agrees with you. That doesn't confront your decisions. That doesn't interrupt your direction. That allows you to keep everything the way it is, while still feeling like you're aligned. But truth does not adjust itself to fit you. It does not bend to your preferences. It does not change to match your comfort. And the moment you begin to reshape it, it stops being truth and becomes something else entirely. Something easier to carry. Something that demands less. Something that allows you to stay where you are without tension. And because it feels peaceful, you assume it must be right. But what feels right is not always real. Sometimes it's just familiar. Sometimes it's just convenient. Sometimes it's something you've built piece by piece to avoid facing what would actually transform you. And deep down, there is often a quiet awareness of that. A sense that something has been softened, that something has been left out, that what you hold on to does not challenge you the way it should. But instead of facing that, you continue with what feels easier, and that becomes your reality. So ask yourself something honestly. Are you following what is true or what fits your life? Because if it never confronts you, if it never asks anything from you, if it never disrupts you, then it may not be truth at all. It may be something you created to avoid what is real. Your schedule is full of spiritual movement. You listen, you watch, you pray, you repeat. There is always something you can point to. Something you've done, something that makes you feel like you are staying close. And because of that, it becomes easy to assume that everything is in place. But movement is not the same as connection. You can be constantly doing and still be completely unchanged. You can fill your time with the right things and never allow those things to reach the parts of you that actually need to be transformed. And that is where the confusion begins. Because activity feels productive, it gives you something to hold on to. It gives you a sense that you're moving forward, that you're engaged, that you're doing what matters, and the more you do, the less you question whether anything inside you is actually shifting. But connection does not just fill your time, it changes you. It slows you down enough to become aware. It brings attention to what you've ignored. It reaches the places that routine cannot touch. And when that is missing, no amount of activity can replace it. So everything continues. You keep adding more listening, more repetition, more motion, hoping that eventually something will feel different, but nothing changes because nothing is being confronted. And over time, that becomes normal. You begin to measure your life by what you do instead of what has changed within you. And as long as you stay active, you feel secure. But security built on activity is fragile. So ask yourself something clearly. If everything you do was taken away, all the routines, all the habits, all the visible actions, what would still remain between you and God? Because what remains is what is real. Time has passed, and that alone has made you feel secure. You've been in this for a while. You've believed for years. You've gone through moments, seasons, experiences that seem to confirm you've grown. And because of that, you assume something inside you must be different now. But time does not change you. It only moves you forward. You can spend years repeating the same patterns, thinking the same way, reacting the same way when pressure comes, holding on to the same habits that have always shaped your life. And because so much time has gone by, you assume something must have shifted. But what if nothing has? What if time has only made things more familiar, more comfortable, more accepted? Not deeper, not stronger, just more settled. And that feeling of being settled begins to replace the need to question anything at all. You stop looking closely. You begin to rely on how long you've believed instead of what that belief has actually produced in your life. And that creates a sense of progress that feels real but leaves everything the same. Because real growth leaves evidence. It changes your direction. It alters your responses. It reshapes what you once tolerated and what you now refuse to accept. It pushes you forward even when it's uncomfortable. So look at your life honestly. Not how long you've been here, not how much time has passed, but what has actually changed within you. Because if the same patterns are still there, if the same reactions still control you, if nothing has truly moved, then time has not grown you, it has only carried you. And there comes a point when you can no longer measure your life by how long you've believed, but by what that belief has produced. There is something else that quietly shapes your life, what you keep returning to when no one is guiding you. Not what you say in front of others, not what you claim when everything is calm, but what you go back to naturally, automatically without thinking. Because that reveals your real direction. You may believe in something higher, but your habits tell another story. The things you feed your mind with, the things you prioritize when you have freedom, the things you choose when no one is watching, that is what is forming you. And over time, repetition becomes identity, not because you decided it, but because you allowed it. What you repeat, you reinforce. What you reinforce, you become. And slowly your life starts reflecting those patterns more than anything you say you believe. That is where many people lose awareness. They focus on belief, but ignore formation. They hold on to what they say is true, while their daily habits are shaping them into something completely different. And that difference grows. So ask yourself something clearly. What are you becoming based on what you consistently return to? Because whatever you return to is what is truly shaping you. There is a place you rarely go, not because you can't, but because you choose not to stay there long enough. It's the place where everything becomes honest. Not what you show, not what you say, not what you present to others, but what is actually happening inside you. The thoughts you don't question, the patterns you don't confront, the things you've learned to live with without ever examining them. And most of the time you move past it. You stay busy. You stay distracted. You keep moving forward without stopping to look inward in a real way. Because as long as nothing forces you to face it, you can continue without discomfort. But without examination, nothing changes. You can believe, you can act, you can continue doing everything you've always done and still never touch what needs to be seen. Because what remains unexamined remains unchanged. And over time, that becomes normal. You stop noticing what is off. You stop questioning what should be questioned. You begin to live in a version of yourself that feels complete but has never been fully confronted. But truth requires honesty. It requires you to look at your thoughts, your reactions, your decisions, and ask where they are really coming from. Not what you say about them, but what is actually driving them, and that is uncomfortable. Because once you see clearly, you cannot return to what you thought before. You cannot continue without awareness. You cannot ignore what has been brought into the light. That is why most people avoid it. They choose movement over reflection. They choose comfort over clarity. And in doing so, they stay exactly where they are. So ask yourself something real. When was the last time you truly stopped and looked at yourself without filters? Because until you do, you will never know what is actually shaping your life. There is a difference between seeing yourself and understanding yourself. You can notice your actions, you can recognize your patterns, you can even admit certain things about yourself, but still not understand what is actually driving them. And that's where most people stop. They see enough to feel aware, but not enough to change. They recognize behavior, but never question the root behind it. And because of that, everything continues, because the root remains untouched. You react the way you do for a reason. You choose the way you choose for a reason. You avoid certain things for a reason. And until you go deeper than what is visible, nothing will truly shift. That requires honesty, not surface-level honesty. Not the kind that makes you feel better, the kind that exposes what you've been protecting, the kind that forces you to see what has been driving your life all along. And that is not easy, because once you understand, you can no longer pretend. You can no longer blame circumstances. You can no longer say you didn't know. So most people stop before that point. They stay aware, but unchanged. But awareness without depth will never transform you. And if you never go deeper, you will keep repeating what you already see. There have been moments, quiet, almost unnoticeable, where something inside you tried to get your attention. Not loudly, not in a way that forced you to stop. Just a subtle awareness, a sense that something wasn't aligned, a feeling that didn't fully make sense, but stayed with you long enough to be felt. And then you moved on. You told yourself it was nothing. You distracted yourself. You pushed it aside because it didn't demand immediate action. And because life kept going, you let it fade into the background. But those signals were not random. They were pointing to something. Something beneath the surface. Something that had been there longer than you realized. And when you ignore that, you don't remove it. You only silence it. At first it speaks softly, a moment of discomfort, a thought that lingers, a question that doesn't fully go away. But the more you ignore it, the quieter it becomes. Not because it's gone, but because you stopped listening. And eventually, you don't hear it at all. That is where many people stay. Not because everything is right, but because they've lost sensitivity to what was trying to reveal something deeper. They've trained themselves to move past it, to keep going, to avoid stopping. But connection sharpens awareness. It makes you sensitive to what is out of place. It draws your attention to what doesn't align. It does not allow you to live disconnected without feeling it. So if nothing inside you ever questions you anymore, if everything feels steady, neutral, undisturbed, that is not always peace. Sometimes it is silence. And silence can mean you've stopped listening to what was trying to guide you all along. There is something that quietly competes for your attention, and most of the time, it wins without resistance. Not because it's stronger, but because it's constant. Your focus. What you give your attention to every day is shaping your perspective. It is influencing how you think, how you react, how you interpret everything around you. And without realizing it, it begins to define your reality. Because attention directs direction. What you focus on grows. What you return to expands. And over time, it becomes the lens through which you see everything else. That includes your faith. If your attention is constantly pulled toward noise, distraction, and surface-level things, then your connection will begin to reflect that. Not because you chose it directly, but because you allowed it to shape you. And that happens slowly. You don't notice it at first. It feels normal. It feels harmless. But over time, it changes what you value. It changes what you think about. It changes how deeply you engage with anything that actually matters. And eventually, depth disappears. So ask yourself something honestly. Where is your attention going when you are not thinking about it? Because your attention is not neutral. It is forming you whether you realize it or not. Pressure reveals what is actually inside you, not what you say, not what you intend, not what you believe in calm moments. When pressure comes, when something pushes you, challenges you, disrupts you, what comes out is what has truly taken root. And that's where the truth becomes clear. You can believe in God, but when pressure hits, what leads you? Do you respond with trust or with fear? Do you move with clarity or with the same reactions you've always had? Do you stand differently, or do you fall back into the same patterns that have always controlled you? Because pressure does not create who you are, it exposes it. And if nothing changes under pressure, if your reactions remain the same, your responses stay the same, your direction does not shift, then your belief has not reached deep enough to transform you. It has stayed on the surface. That is why these moments matter. Not because they are difficult, but because they reveal something you cannot see when everything is easy. They show you what is actually guiding you when control is gone. And most people don't look at that. They focus on what they say they believe instead of what their life shows when it is tested. They hold on to intention instead of examining evidence. But evidence is undeniable. It shows up in real time. It reveals what is truly inside you. And it does not adjust to what you wish was there. It only shows what is. So think about your last moment under pressure. Not what you hoped to do, but what you actually did. Because in that moment, you were not performing. You were revealing. There is a difference you can feel even if you've never put it into words. You believe in God, but you are still holding your life in your own hands. Not in an obvious way. Not in a way that you would easily admit. But in your decisions, in your direction, in the things you refuse to release, there is still a part of you that wants control. You move, but only where it feels safe. You trust, but only when it aligns with what you already want. You say you have faith, but your choices are still centered around what you can manage, predict, and keep within your reach. And that changes everything. Because belief without surrender keeps you in the same place. It allows you to feel connected without ever being transformed. It allows you to stay close without ever letting anything actually take over your life in a way that changes it. And that is where most people remain. They believe, but they don't release. They trust, but they don't let go. They hold on to what feels secure and avoid what would require them to step into something they cannot control. Because surrender is not comfortable. It challenges your control. It exposes what you've been holding on to. It asks you to move not based on what you see, but on something deeper. And that kind of trust is not easy. So people avoid it. They stay where they are. Close enough to feel safe, but never far enough to actually change. And over time, they begin to confuse belief with surrender. But they are not the same. And until surrender happens, nothing truly shifts. Now you've seen it not as an idea, not as something distant, but as something that reaches directly into your life. Not what you say you believe, but what that belief has actually done. And maybe something inside you feels different. Not comfort, not reassurance, but awareness. A clarity that is hard to ignore. like something you've always known is now impossible to avoid. That matters more than you think. Because awareness is where everything begins. Not routine, not repetition, not assumption. Awareness, the moment you stop and see clearly without defending yourself, without explaining it away, without trying to escape it. That is where truth takes hold. And you are not being pushed away. You are being called closer, but in a way that is real. Not through what you've always done, not through what you've always said, but through something that actually changes you. Because what is real does not leave you the same. It reshapes how you think. It redirects how you live. It changes what you accept and what you can no longer ignore. Not instantly, but in a way that cannot be undone. So don't rush past this moment. Stay here and be honest. Because this is not about whether you believe in God. It's about whether your life has ever truly responded to Him. And that answer is already inside you.